I have seen a lot in my 43 years on the bench. I have watched people lie to my face, cry crocodile tears, and try every trick in the book to bend this courtroom to their will. I have had men threaten me. I have had men bribe me. I have had men send their lawyers to intimidate me and their accountants to confuse me. But I have never, in all my decades wearing this robe, had a man lean across the defense table, close enough that I could smell the cologne on his neck, and whisper something so vile, so personal, so calculated to destroy me, that the blood drained from my face, and for 5 full seconds I could not speak, until the morning of January 14th, 2025, at exactly 10:11 a.m., when a man named Alexander Corsetti, founder of Corsetti International Holdings, net worth estimated at $3.2 billion, looked me in the eyes during a sidebar and whispered 6 words that he thought would end this case. He was wrong. Those 6 words ended him. You think you have seen power try to corrupt justice? Hit that subscribe button right now, because what I am about to tell you is going to show you what happens when a man who thinks he can buy anything discovers the one thing that is not for sale. Let me take you back to how this whole thing started. The case file had been transferred to my docket from a lower court that had recused itself, which in 43 years I can count on one hand the number of times that has happened. Case number 2025-CV-0847, assault, intimidation, reckless endangerment, destruction of property, and obstruction of justice. The defendant was Alexander Corsetti, age 64, founder and chairman of Corsetti International Holdings, a conglomerate with interests in shipping, commercial real estate, and private equity, with offices in New York, London, and Dubai. The complainant was a man named Samuel Okafor, age 41, school bus driver for the Warwick Public School District, route number 117, father of 3, and the quietest, most dignified man I have ever had sit in my courtroom. Now I need you to understand Samuel before I tell you what was done to him, because Samuel Okafor is the kind of person this country runs on but never sees. Samuel came to the United States from Lagos, Nigeria, in 2006, with a degree in civil engineering and $400 in his pocket. His degree was not recognized. He could not get an engineering job. He did not complain. He got a commercial driver's license and started driving a school bus. He had been doing it for 17 years. Same district, same route. Bus number 117, the route that covered 3 elementary schools in the West Warwick corridor. He picked up 86 children every morning and delivered them safely to school, and every afternoon he brought them home. 17 years. Not one accident. Not one incident report. Not one complaint from a parent. The children called him Mr. Sam. Some of them hugged him when they got off the bus. He kept a jar of peppermints on the dashboard because he said a peppermint at 7 in the morning makes a child smile, and a child who smiles is a child who is ready to learn. Samuel's wife, Adeze, was a certified nursing assistant at a rehabilitation facility in Cranston. She made $16 an hour. She worked the evening shift so that one of them was always home with the children. Their oldest, Emmanuel, was 15 and wanted to be an architect. Their middle child, Grace, was 12 and played the violin in the school orchestra. Their youngest, Blessing, was 7 and had been diagnosed with sickle cell disease at age 2. Blessing's medication cost over $600 a month after insurance. The specialist appointments in Boston cost more. Samuel and Adeze had $5,300 in savings. Samuel drove the bus and then drove for a rideshare service 3 nights a week, 9 p.m. to midnight, to cover the gap. He slept 5 hours a night. He never missed a morning pickup. If you have ever worked 2 jobs to keep your family above water, if you have ever driven home in the dark knowing your alarm would go off in 4 hours, and done it again anyway without a word of complaint, then please subscribe to this channel. We are a family here, and men like Samuel are who we fight for. Join us now. When Samuel Okafor walked into my courtroom, he was wearing a dark suit that was clean and pressed but not new. The collar of his white shirt was slightly frayed at the edges, the kind of wear that comes from careful washing over many years. His tie was knotted with precision. His shoes were polished. He sat down and placed his hands flat on the table, and he was completely still. Not nervous still, composed still. The stillness of a man who has endured things you cannot see and has decided that his dignity is the one thing no one can take. His posture was perfect. His eyes were steady. When he spoke, his voice carried the soft cadence of his Nigerian accent. Respectful, measured, the kind of voice that makes you lean in to listen. Here is what happened. On the evening of December 3rd, 2024, at approximately 3:42 p.m., Samuel was completing his afternoon route. He was driving bus number 117 westbound on West Shore Road when a black Rolls-Royce Cullinan, a vehicle valued at approximately $375,000, ran a red light at the intersection of West Shore and Sandy Lane and nearly struck the school bus broadside. Samuel hit the brakes. The bus stopped 6 feet short of a collision. There were 23 children on that bus. 23. Samuel activated the hazard lights, checked the children, and pulled the bus to the shoulder. Every child was safe, not a scratch. Because Samuel Okafor had 17 years of instinct and 2 hands on the wheel, and he did what he was trained to do. The Rolls-Royce pulled over 50 yards ahead. The driver's door opened, and out stepped Alexander Corsetti. He was wearing a cashmere overcoat, dark navy Loro Piana, worth approximately $6,000. His suit underneath was Ketone, Neapolitan tailoring, at least $8,000. His shoes were custom Edward Green, $2,500. His watch was a Patek Philippe perpetual calendar in platinum, worth somewhere north of $150,000. He walked toward the school bus with the stride of a man who has never been told to slow down in his life. Samuel stepped off the bus to speak with him. He said, "Sir, you ran the red light. Are you all right?" Corsetti did not answer the question. He looked at the bus. He looked at Samuel, and he said, "Do you know what that car costs? If there is a single mark on it, you are going to pay for it." Samuel said, "Sir, there are children on this bus. I need to file a report." Corsetti stepped closer. He was 6'2". Samuel was 5'9". Corsetti jabbed a finger at Samuel's chest and said, "You are a bus driver. You are nothing. I will buy your bus company and fire you by Friday. Do not test me." Then he grabbed the incident report form that Samuel was holding and tore it in half. He threw the pieces on the ground. A parent who had been following the bus in her car, a woman named Christine Moretti, witnessed the entire exchange. She recorded the last 40 seconds on her phone, including Corsetti tearing the report and the words, "You are nothing. I will buy your bus company and fire you by Friday." Officer James Haddad, badge number 4918, Warwick Police Department, arrived on scene 11 minutes later. He took statements, photographed the intersection, and cited Corsetti for running a red light, reckless driving, and destruction of a municipal document. Corsetti took the citation, folded it once, and put it in his breast pocket without looking at it. He said to Officer Haddad, "You will be hearing from my attorneys." Then he got in the Rolls-Royce and drove away. Let me say that again. A billionaire ran a red light and nearly broadsided a school bus carrying 23 children, and instead of asking if the children were safe, he threatened the bus driver, destroyed the incident report, and promised to buy the man's employer and fire him. Drop a comment right now and tell me what you think should happen to someone who values a car over 23 children. And if you believe that no amount of money gives anyone the right to intimidate a man who protects kids for a living, hit that like button. Because what happened in my courtroom is something I will remember for the rest of my life. Tell me in the comments what you would do in my chair. Your support helps these stories reach people who need them. Subscribe now. But it did not end on that roadside. Over the next 5 weeks, Samuel Okafor's life was systematically dismantled. The Warwick School District received a letter from a law firm representing Corsetti International Holdings, threatening a defamation lawsuit if Samuel's false account of the incident was not retracted. Samuel was placed on paid administrative leave pending an internal review, a review that was initiated not by the district, but by a school board member who, it was later revealed, had received a $40,000 donation to his re-election campaign from a Corsetti-affiliated PAC. Samuel sat at home for 5 weeks while a billionaire's lawyers tried to erase what had happened on West Shore Road. Adese picked up extra shifts. The rideshare income disappeared. Blessing needed her medication. The $5,300 in savings started shrinking. Samuel told Adeze, "I did the right thing. I know I did the right thing." Alexander Corsetti arrived at my courtroom in the Rolls-Royce Cullinan. He walked in wearing a charcoal Keaton suit, $8,000. Hermes tie, burgundy silk with gold thread, $400. The Patek Philippe was on his wrist. His shoes were fresh John Lobb, hand-lasted, $3,000. He had 3 attorneys, one corporate, one criminal defense, and one whose sole function appeared to be carrying a second briefcase. They sat down in a row. Corsetti adjusted his cuffs, crossed one leg over the other, and looked at me with an expression that I can only describe as amused. Like this was a dinner party that had gone on a bit long. Samuel was already seated. Dark suit, frayed collar, polished shoes, hands flat, eyes steady. The prosecution played Christine Moretti's phone video. Every person in that courtroom heard Corsetti's voice. "You are nothing." They watched him tear the report. They watched him walk back to the Rolls-Royce without looking back at the bus. When the video ended, the courtroom was silent. Then Corsetti's lead attorney presented the defense. A traffic dispute. Tempers flared. His client regretted the language. The citation was being contested. The school board matter was unrelated. Then Corsetti waved his attorneys quiet. All 3 of them. He stood, buttoned his jacket, and addressed me directly. "Your Honor," he said, "I have built a $3 billion company. I employ 4,000 people globally. I have donated over $50 million to charitable causes. One incident with a school bus does not define my character. I am prepared to make a generous donation to the school district to put this behind us." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a checkbook, and set it on the defense table, like he was paying a restaurant bill. I said, "Mr. Corsetti, this is not a transaction. You cannot write a check to make this disappear." He smiled and said, "Your Honor, everything is a transaction. That has been my experience." I said, "Not in my courtroom." His smile faded slightly. He looked at me differently then, the way a man looks at something he is deciding whether to push harder on. And then he requested a sidebar. His attorney argued it was regarding a procedural matter. I allowed it. The attorneys approached the bench. Corsetti came with them. He stood at the far end, close to me. And while his attorneys were speaking to the assistant district attorney about an evidentiary objection, Corsetti leaned in, close enough that no microphone would catch it, close enough that only I could hear. And he whispered 6 words. "I know where your grandchildren go to school." My face went white. I know it did because I felt the blood leave it. I felt my hands go cold on the bench. For 5 seconds, maybe 6, the world narrowed to that sentence and the man who said it, and the sound of my own heartbeat. My bailiff, Sergeant Webb, saw my face change. He took a step closer. I held up one hand to stop him. I needed a moment. I took a breath. I took another. I thought about my father. I thought about what he would do. And then I did it. I turned to the court reporter and I said, in a voice loud enough for every person in that room to hear, "Let the record reflect that during this sidebar, the defendant, Alexander Corsetti, leaned toward this bench and whispered the following words, 'I know where your grandchildren go to school.' Let the record further reflect that this court interprets that statement as a direct threat against a sitting judge's family, and that this court will respond accordingly." The courtroom went dead silent. Not quiet, silent. The kind of silence that has its own sound, like the air being pressed out of a room. Corsetti's lead attorney grabbed his client's arm. Corsetti pulled free. For the first time that morning, the amusement was gone. He realized what had just happened. He had said the words. I had put them on the record. And there was no checkbook in the world that could tear that page out. If you have stuck with me this long, you are incredible. Hit that like button if you believe that threatening a judge's family is the line that should never be crossed. Because now it was time. I looked at the assistant district attorney. I said, "Add witness intimidation and threatening a judicial officer to the charges." I turned to Sergeant Webb. I said, "Sergeant, contact the United States Marshals Service. Inform them that a direct threat has been made against a member of the judiciary and request immediate protective detail." Webb was already moving. Then I delivered my ruling on the original charges. Mr. Crosetti, I am fining you $50,000. That money goes directly to Samuel Okafor to cover his lost wages during the administrative leave your attorneys manufactured, the financial hardship caused by your campaign of intimidation, and the cost of his daughter Blessing's medical needs during the weeks you took his income from him. You will perform 800 hours of community service. You will report to the Warwick Public School District Transportation Department, and you will wash school buses. You will check tire pressure. You will sweep the floors of the depot where men like Samuel Okafor start their mornings at 5 a.m. so that 86 children get to school safely. You will do it in civilian clothes. No Keaton, no Patek Philippe, no three-attorney entourage. Your driver's license is suspended for 3 years, and the threat you made at this bench is now a separate criminal matter. It will be investigated by the United States Marshals and prosecuted by the Federal District Attorney's Office. You will not leave this courtroom without being formally charged. You walked into my courtroom and put a checkbook on the table. You told me everything is a transaction. And when that did not work, you threatened my grandchildren. Let me tell you something, Mr. Corsetti. I grew up on Federal Hill. My father was an Italian immigrant who drove a taxi and opened a grocery store. He taught me that there are things in this world that are not for sale. Justice is one of them. My family's safety is another. And the courage of a school bus driver who protected 23 children while you worried about your paint job is something your money could not buy in 1,000 lifetimes. In my courtroom, the law does not bend for billionaires. It does not flinch at whispers, and it does not forget. The courtroom erupted. People stood. The applause was the loudest I have heard in 43 years. Samuel Okafor sat perfectly still. Then he bowed his head and his shoulders shook once, just once. He composed himself. He looked up. He looked at me, and he nodded. One nod. That was enough. It said everything. I could not help it. There were tears in my eyes. Corsetti was escorted from the courtroom by Sergeant Webb and 2 additional court officers. He was formally charged with threatening a judicial officer before he reached the parking lot. The Rolls-Royce was still running. His driver was told to follow the marshal's vehicle. 5 months later, Alexander Corsetti was indicted on federal charges of threatening a judicial officer, witness intimidation, and obstruction of justice. His assets were placed under review. The school board member who initiated Samuel's administrative leave resigned after the PAC donation was reported by the Providence Journal. Corsetti International Holdings faced an SEC inquiry into corporate governance practices. The charitable foundation bearing his name quietly removed his portrait from its lobby. Samuel Okafor was reinstated with full back pay and a formal apology from the Warwick School District. He received a commendation from the superintendent. The parents on Route 117 organized a recognition event at the elementary school. 86 children signed a card that said, "Thank you, Mr. Sam." Emmanuel is still planning to be an architect. Grace made first chair in the school orchestra. Blessing's sickle cell is managed, and she is doing well. She told her father she wants to drive a bus when she grows up, just like him. Samuel laughed and said, "Maybe something bigger, my Blessing." I think about that whisper often. I think about standing at that bench with my face drained and my hands cold, and 6 words hanging between me and a man who believed his money made him untouchable. And I think about the choice I made in those 5 seconds. I could have let it go. I could have swallowed it. I could have ruled on the original charges and never spoken those words into the record. But my father's voice was there, steady as always, and it said what it always says: be fair, but do not be a doormat. My father used to tell me, be fair, but do not be a doormat. Some people will walk all over you if you let them. Alexander Corsetti tried to walk over a school bus driver, a police officer, a school board, and a judge. He walked over everyone he had ever met because no one had ever stopped him. Someone had to stop him. That morning it was me. To anyone watching who has power, real power, the kind that can make phone calls and buy silence and rearrange the world to suit you, hear me. There is a line. When you threaten a man's livelihood to protect your bumper, you have crossed it. When you threaten a judge's grandchildren to win a case, you have not just crossed it, you have erased it. and the law will find you on the other side. And to anyone watching who has ever been called nothing by someone with more money and a louder voice, remember Samuel Okafor. He was a bus driver making 5 hours of sleep work. He kept peppermints on his dashboard so children would smile. He protected 23 kids and did not raise his voice once. And when a billionaire tried to erase him, the truth brought him back. You are not nothing. You never were. Thank you for watching this story all the way to the end. If you believe in real justice, do 3 things for me. Subscribe to this channel so stories like this reach every person who needs to hear them. Leave a comment and tell me about someone who serves your community and never gets the recognition they deserve. And watch the next video, where a bank CEO forecloses on a dying veteran's home, and what happens next shocks Wall Street. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing that justice is not just a word, it is a promise. And I keep my promises.